The research station orbiting the barren world of Etheris 12 was quiet. Its corridors echoed only with the low hum of machinery and the occasional murmur of scientists lost in their work. Dr. Aline Torres sat hunched over her terminal, her brow furrowed in concentration. For weeks, she had been analyzing a transmission intercepted from deep space, its contents a mystery encoded in an ancient language long since abandoned by humanity. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she replayed the message for the 100th time. The static-filled audio carried an ominous tone, the alien syllables sharp and deliberate. "Still no progress?" came a voice from the doorway. Aline turned to see her colleague, Dr. Ethan Marlowe, holding 2 steaming cups of synth coffee. "I'm getting there," Aline replied, accepting the drink. "But this language, it's old. Pre-unification galactic standard may be older. Whoever sent this wanted it to be hard to decipher." Ethan frowned. "Why send a message if they don't want us to understand it?" "Maybe they thought we'd still know how to read it," Aline said, her tone grim. "It's like sending a letter to someone who forgot how to read. And that's what worries me." After hours of cross-referencing ancient linguistic databases and running decryption algorithms, Aline finally pieced together a translation. The words on her screen sent a chill down her spine. "Humanity must answer for its crimes." The phrase was repeated, growing in intensity as though it were a warning or a declaration. Aline pushed her chair back, her breath quickening. "Ethan, you need to see this." Together, they analyzed the message's metadata. It originated from deep within the Veil Nebula, a region of space abandoned for millennia. Aline's gut churned. The nebula had once been the seat of the Galactic Council, a coalition of alien civilizations that ruled the galaxy during humanity's earliest ventures into space. "I thought the council collapsed ages ago," Ethan said. "All the history books say it dissolved after the First Contact Wars." "Maybe not," Aline replied. "Maybe they've been waiting." The message was quickly escalated to Earth's Central Command. Within hours, the station was abuzz with activity as analysts and military advisors dissected the transmission. Humanity had enjoyed peace and isolation for centuries, expanding its colonies without interference. The thought of the Galactic Council returning was more than troubling, it was existential. As the analysis continued, Aline was summoned to a secure briefing with Admiral Jackson Vale, head of the Earth Defense Fleet. The man was a living legend, his presence commanding the room. "Dr. Torres," Vale said, his voice calm but firm, "I understand you're the foremost expert on this transmission. We need to know, how serious is this threat?" Aline hesitated. "Admiral, if this message is authentic, it's more than a threat. It's a declaration of war." Vale's expression didn't change, but the room seemed to grow colder. "Do we know why now?" he asked. "Not yet," Aline admitted. "But the message references the Accords of Celesta, a treaty signed 3,000 years ago during humanity's first encounters with the Council. If I'm right, we violated those treaties. And they haven't forgotten." The Admiral leaned back in his chair, his steely eyes fixed on the table. "For centuries, we assumed the Council was gone. But if they've reformed, we're dealing with a coalition of civilizations far more advanced than us." As the meeting concluded, reports flooded in from the frontier. Human colonies near the Veil Nebula were going dark, their last transmissions frantic cries for help. Surveillance drones captured glimpses of massive alien fleets moving in unison, their designs unfamiliar but unmistakably ancient. The final blow came when Solara Prime, humanity's most prosperous colony in the region, was attacked. Witnesses described towering ships raining destruction on the planet's surface. The colony's defenses were overwhelmed in minutes. Aline watched the footage in horror as Admiral Vale addressed the fleet. "This isn't just an invasion," he said. "It's retribution. The Council believes we're a threat to the galaxy, and they intend to eliminate us. We have no choice but to fight." That night, Aline couldn't sleep. She pored over the data, searching for answers. What crimes had humanity committed that warranted such wrath? The historical records were incomplete, fragmented by time and conflict. But one detail stood out, a name whispered in the oldest texts, the Nyxerians. They had been one of the Council's founding species, brilliant and enigmatic. Rumors suggested they possessed a superweapon capable of harnessing the energy of entire stars. Humanity's records said the Nyxerians disappeared during the First Contact Wars. But what if their fate was tied to humanity's rise? Aileen's terminal chimed. Another transmission had been intercepted. This one was short but clear, a final warning from the Council. You have one cycle to surrender. After that, there will be no mercy. Humanity had a choice to make, and Aileen feared the price of their survival would be steep. The Council's war declaration reverberated across humanity's territories like a seismic wave. Panic gripped the frontier colonies, while Earth's leaders scrambled to formulate a response. Admiral Jackson Vale stood at the helm of Earth Defense Command, his face a stoic mask as he reviewed reports of the Council's advances. Solara Prime was lost, and the Council fleets were now targeting key supply routes. Humanity had weeks, perhaps days, before their core worlds came under attack. Dr. Aileen Torres sat across from Vale in the command center's war room. Her research into the Council's motivations had become a priority, and though her findings were troubling, they were far from complete. Admiral, Aileen began cautiously, this isn't just about conquest. The Council is acting on ancient grievances, likely tied to the First Contact Wars. I found scattered records mentioning something called the Starforge and a species known as the Nyxerians. They were a founding member of the Council and vanished around the time of humanity's early expansion. Vale's sharp eyes locked onto hers. You're saying humanity caused their extinction? It's possible, Aileen admitted. Our ancestors might have seen them as a threat and acted preemptively. If the Council blames us for wiping out one of their own, this war isn't about territory. It's about justice or vengeance. The Admiral leaned back, his expression unreadable. Justice or not, we can't let them annihilate us. What do we know about the Starforge? Aileen hesitated. The records are incomplete, but it was supposedly a superweapon capable of harnessing star energy. If it still exists, it might be in the Vale Nebula, where the Council is gathering. Vale frowned. And if they have it, we're facing an extinction-level threat. The Admiral dismissed Aileen with orders to continue her research. He had no time for hypotheticals. Humanity needed a strategy. He convened his top military advisors, outlining a desperate plan to fortify Earth's defenses and slow the Council's advance. Yet, as the hours passed, the grim reality set in. Humanity's fleets were outnumbered, their technology inferior to the Council's ancient and advanced weaponry. Meanwhile, Aileen dug deeper into the records. She uncovered a chilling detail. The Starforge wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to humanity's meteoric rise in the galaxy. The Nyxerians had built it as a means of maintaining peace through deterrence, but humanity had seized it during the First Contact Wars. The Starforge's energy allowed early human colonies to grow and thrive, but at a cost. The Nyxerians, who had resisted humanity's control, were systematically eradicated. Aileen's stomach churned as the pieces fell into place. Humanity's prosperity was built on the ashes of a species they had destroyed. The Council hadn't forgotten, and now they were coming to settle the score. Her thoughts were interrupted by an emergency broadcast. A Council fleet had breached the frontier and was heading for the colony of Vega Station. The transmission showed enormous, cathedral-like ships with pulsating energy weapons tearing through Vega's defenses. Aileen watched in horror as Admiral Vale addressed the fleet. This is not the time for fear, he said, his voice steady. This is the time for resilience. Humanity has faced extinction before and emerged stronger. We will not bow to the Council's demands. But Aileen wasn't so sure. As she stared at the reports and the ancient records, one question haunted her. Was humanity's survival worth the cost of repeating the sins of the past? Aileen Torres stood on the deck of the Vanguard's Edge, a sleek exploration vessel chosen for a dangerous and secret mission. The Admiral's orders were clear. Find the Starforge before the Council could use it against humanity. The prospect of uncovering the ancient superweapon filled her with equal parts dread and determination. The ship's captain, Kai Ren, leaned against the railing beside her, his casual demeanor a stark contrast to the tension in the room. You know, he said, for a genius, you don't look too thrilled about saving the galaxy. Aileen shot him a sharp glance. The The Starforge isn't just a weapon. It's a symbol of everything wrong with humanity's past. If we find it, we're opening a door we might not be able to close. Kai smirked, but his eyes held a glimmer of understanding. Then let's hope we don't regret what's behind that door. The Vanguard's edge slipped into the Veil Nebula, its engines humming softly as it navigated through dense fields of cosmic debris and gravitational anomalies. The nebula was a graveyard of ancient battles, littered with the remnants of long-dead ships. Aline stared out at the wreckage, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her. Picking up something, said a voice from the bridge. The ship's sensor officer, Lieutenant Jenna Cross, pointed to a faint energy signature. It matches the Starforge's description from the archives. It's coming from the center of the nebula. The team braced as the ship pushed deeper into the nebula. The anomalies grew stronger, pulling at the Vanguard's edge like invisible hands. Aline gripped the console, her mind racing. If the Nyxerians had built the Starforge here, it wasn't just hidden, it was protected. When they finally reached the source of the signal, the Starforge came into view. It was enormous, a sprawling station built around a dying star. Its surface gleamed with alien metal, and massive conduits pulsed with a faint, eerie light. By the void, Kai whispered. It's real. Aline didn't have time to marvel. As the Vanguard's edge approached, an alarm blared. Incoming vessels, Jenna shouted. It's the Council. 3 sleek Council ships emerged from the nebula's shadows, their energy weapons already charging. The Vanguard's edge veered sharply, but it was outgunned. The enemy ships fired, and the Vanguard rocked violently. Kai took the helm, barking orders to the crew. Brace for impact. Get us close to the Starforge. We might be able to use its defenses. Aline scrambled to access the Starforge systems. Its ancient interface resisted her commands, but she pushed through, desperate to activate its dormant weapons. As the Council ships closed in, a deep hum resonated through the station. Massive energy cannons powered up, unleashing blinding beams of light that obliterated the attackers in seconds. The crew of the Vanguard's edge stared in stunned silence. Aline exhaled shakily, her hands trembling over the console. It's active, she said softly. Kai turned to her, his expression serious. Then the real fight just began. The Starforge hung in the void like a slumbering titan, its massive structure glowing faintly as it powered up. From her station aboard the Vanguard's edge, Aline Torres stared at the weapon with a mix of awe and dread. It was fully operational now, a relic of the Nyxerians' brilliance and a stark reminder of humanity's darkest legacy. Admiral Vale's voice crackled over the comms. Dr. Torres, what's the status of the Starforge? Can we use it to defend Earth? Aline hesitated before responding. It's functional, but Admiral, this weapon wasn't meant for defense. It's annihilation on an unimaginable scale. If we use it, we're no better than the Council claims. Vale's tone hardened. If we don't, there won't be a humanity left to argue morality. Prepare to engage. The Council's combined fleet was already advancing on the Sol system. Hundreds of ships, sleek, ancient and bristling with weapons, moved in perfect formation, their intent clear. Earth's defense fleet, though valiant, was hopelessly outnumbered. Across the system, evacuation efforts were in chaos as civilians fled to underground shelters or overloaded transport ships. From the Starforge, Aline and the crew of the Vanguard's edge watched the battle begin. Council ships tore through human lines with brutal efficiency, their weapons cutting swathes through the fleet. Admiral Vale's flagship, the Resolute, led a desperate counterattack, exploiting every weakness they could find in the Council's formations. Dr. Torres, Vale's voice broke through the static. We're losing ground. Activate the Starforge. Aline's fingers hovered over the control panel, her mind racing. The Starforge could end the battle in minutes, but the cost, lives, planets, entire systems, was unthinkable. Do it, Captain Kyron urged from beside her. If we don't, they'll destroy Earth. Reluctantly, Aline activated the Starforge's targeting systems. The massive station groaned as it drew energy from the dying star at its core. Beams of searing light erupted from its cannons, carving through the Council fleet with terrifying precision. Ships disintegrated in an instant, their remains scattered into the void. For a moment, hope surged among humanity's forces. The Council was retreating, their ranks shattered. But then, a new energy signature flared on the Starforge sensors. "They've activated something," Jenna Cross, the sensor officer, reported. "A weapon of their own." The Council's flagship unleashed a devastating pulse, striking the Starforge. The station shuddered, alarms blaring as power systems failed and sections collapsed. Aline fought to stabilize the controls, but it was clear the Starforge couldn't withstand another hit. "This is it," Aline whispered. In a moment of clarity, she made her decision. Instead of continuing the assault, she redirected the Starforge's remaining power to broadcast a message. Her voice echoed across the galaxy, transmitted on every frequency. "This is Dr. Aline Torres of humanity. We acknowledge the sins of our ancestors and the pain we've caused. But we are not those who came before. We seek peace, not destruction. Please let us end this together." The Council fleet hesitated. The warships, poised for a final strike, began to retreat. The message had reached them. Admiral Vale's voice broke the silence. "They're standing down." Aline collapsed into her chair, exhausted but relieved. Humanity had survived, not through power, but through the truth. The Starforge was silent once more, its legacy of destruction averted, for now.